Good evening. Tonight we have a story involving the ubiquitous corporate Zoom call. This is a story written exclusively for this channel, and I hope you enjoy it. Let's get into it. Melissa, a smallish girl of 25 with tan skin and brunette hair, has been my direct report for a year and a half. She was the type of girl who completed tasks ahead of schedule, asked for extra work, and appeared completely obsessed with her job. I adored her. She and I were having our usual Zoom meeting, which I always recorded because she typically gave me a whole heap of helpful data. Her research was so thorough that I loved asking her tons of questions and often revisited our recorded sessions so I would, in turn, be able to answer questions from the higher up. We were a great team. On that day, as we were ending our call, a knock sounded at the door of her studio apartment. She smiled at me, cheerily said, "Bye," and jabbed at her touchscreen computer, presumably to end the call. However, she must have missed because the call didn't end. Her smile faded, and she stood up and headed towards the door. I was about to end the call when Melissa opened the door and her smile returned. On the other side was a tall man with a thick silver beard, wearing jeans and a sports jacket. He leaned forward and placed his lips on Melissa's while she rose on her tiptoes and draped her arms around his neck. Heat crept up my neck. I was embarrassed to witness this intimate exchange. I had partly covered my eyes as soon as she had opened the door, and my fingers reached towards the end call button, but I held back. Part of my brain thought, wait a second, I know that guy. So I didn't hang up. As the man pulled his face away from my direct report's face, I quickly pulled in a breath. I did know that guy because he was my boss. My first thought was, how dare he touch my employee? A thought that was immediately followed by, wait a second, she kissed him. What's going on? The couple ceased their embrace, and Melissa fetched a pair of wine glasses out of the cupboard as my boss, Tim, said, "How's the day been, babe?" Ugh, you know Janet. She asked about every data source and wanted to know each and every irrelevant detail. It's like, can you just shut up sometimes and look at the big picture? It's like she's always testing me, Melissa complained. And tears sprang to my eyes because I'm Janet. I'm a context-heavy and deliberative person. Knowing details helps me feel in control. And I asked her those questions because I trust her completely. Well, I trusted her completely. As I spiraled, Tim had responded, but all I caught was, "You drive me nuts too." By this time, they had taken their wine out of my line of vision and over to what I assumed was a couch and living room type area. Melissa had complained to me multiple times about her cramped studio apartment, so I knew they couldn't go far. Seconds later, I heard the smack and suck sound of kissing and rolled my eyes. The kissing escalated to other noises, and the only thing that kept me from vomiting was knowing that having this recorded was going to benefit me in some way. Because, if nothing else, Tim's married. Then Melissa whispered, "You know, I've been with the company for almost 2 years now. I feel like I know my role quite well, and I've been shadowing Janet. I know her role pretty well too. And I can just imagine her tracing a finger along his bare, gray-haired covered chest." "Melissa, I know what you're hinting at," Tim replied. "I can't just give you Janet's job." "Tim," Melissa answered, "when we first got together, you heavily implied that this would lead somewhere. It's been 6 months. I kept silent, but in my head, I blew up. All this time, I had been training and guiding this girl, and for what? For her to betray me and try to take my job? I quieted my thoughts so I could keep listening. Sweetheart, these things take time. I need to figure out a way to get rid of Janet first. A reason to transfer or fire her. It could take years. Years? You said a few months. And there was a crisp slap. You hit me. A frustrated yell erupted from Melissa, and she stormed back in front of the computer wearing a long t-shirt, her hair rumpled. Tim followed behind her, arms open. Come on, I couldn't resist you. I would have said anything. Melissa whipped around and said, How could you lie to me for so long? She pushed him with both of her hands, but the size difference between the two meant he barely moved, so she slapped him again. Stop slapping me, he said firmly, as he pushed her away, and she stumbled backwards. He held a hand up to his red cheek. Melissa's face was twisted in an ugly grimace of rage and betrayal. She slapped him with the back of her hand, which cut his other cheek with her ring. I said stop slapping me, he answered, and pushed her harder this time. She stumbled back and tripped. I heard a loud crack and the shattering of glass. Then silence. Melissa, oh my God! Tim bent down with his hands out to the side and went out of range of the computer camera. Moments later, he stood again and backed up so I could see him. I decided that now would be my time to interfere. Tim! I shouted. He jumped, and pure fear passed over his face like I'd never seen before. Absolute, life-ending panic. He crouched and inched his way towards the computer. Tim, tell me what happened, I said. In a whisper, Tim answered. The coffee table. She hit the side of her head on the corner. It's bleeding so much, but I don't know, she's still breathing. I turned off the recording along with any remaining loyalty or love for Melissa. Tim, this is what you're going to do. Get rid of her body. I can help you. I assume since you're cheating on your wife, no one but me knows you're here, yeah? No one knows, but Janet, she's still breathing. Tim, clean up the blood. What do you think will happen to you, even if she wakes up? You think your life will go back to normal? I allowed this to sink in, then continued. Now, once you've gotten rid of the body, you're going to go back to your job like everything is normal. And you're going to give me $10,000 a month, or I'm going to release the recording of my Zoom call. Got it? Tim licked his lips. I was never going to get rid of you, Janet. You know that, right? I laughed. I don't care, Tim, I said and hung up. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this video, consider checking out the one on the screen now. It's called There's a Traitor in the Family, and it's a story that focuses on complicated family dynamics, something which can intensify when your family is part of the mafia.